Get started, Meredith, please. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Subcommittee meeting of the Environment and Transportation Committee. We will be discussing three bills today, HB 9, HB 40, and HB 257. Let us start with Madam Flynn, HB 9, and this is Delegate Charkoudian's bill about just changing some definitions and reporting for the Food Systems Resiliency Council, and there is an amendment.
Did you want me to discuss
Yes,
the
ma'am.
amendment? Okay, sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Sorry.
So the amendment language is moving items that were to be included in the 2021 strategic plan to the list of policy recommendations that the council is to work toward developing. And then it strikes language in the bill that would have had required periodic updates to the strategic plan that was adopted in 2021.
Yes, that is. Yes. And then it redefines terms from essentially moving.
That's in the bill, yes. The bill
Yes.
updates terminology to what's currently used as it relates to healthy food priority areas instead of food deserts, and the term wasted food instead of food waste.
Okay. And the amendment I see is on page, and you all should have a copy of the amendment, page 3, line 22.
Yes, so under current law, current law requires the council to work towards various goals, including developing certain recommendations. And the bill makes this responsibility ongoing and then updates those goals to be pursued by the council with the list of items that were in that one-time requirement to adopt a strategic plan in 2021. So it incorporates the items under that strategic plan into the list of policy recommendations that can be made by the council. So
Okay.
that would include, this relates to, this is current law. So on page 3, the council, this is starting in line 14, in current law, the council is to work towards developing equity and sustainability policy recommendations to increase the long-term resiliency of the food system. And the amendment language would add including recommendations relating to increasing the quantity, quality, aggregation, marketing, and distribution of local food in urban, suburban, and rural settings, increasing the procurement of local food through schools, institutions of higher education, and other institutions, creating additional market opportunities for Maryland food businesses, and expanding access to small-scale manufacturing and food production infrastructure. And that's similar language that was initially required to be incorporated into their 2021 strategic plan. So it basically makes that those types of ongoing considerations of the council.
Any discussion on the bill and then under the amendments? Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there any kind of significant fiscal note with this?
This is no fiscal note, as I understand.
Yeah, it should be able to be implemented with MDEM's existing resources.
Well, if you would, Madam Chair, I'd move the amendments if that's right proper.
Yes, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a first and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Is there a motion to move the bill as amended?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor of recommending HB 9 to the full committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? The bill moves favorable for full Committee, thank you all so much. Let us now go to HB 40. I got this big binder. And I think this is a Patrick.
Correct.
This is a Patrick. Okay. This is the bill we heard last week about the resident consolidated senior sports fishing licensings, essentially changing, altering the fees for the licensing, as well as changing some of the requirement. I think it removes the ability to do, where was this page?
The other thing is it removes the requirement or the free trout stamp for
Right.
the resident consolidated senior sport fishing license.
Right,
So then they'll have to buy a trout stamp.
right. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Doesn't it also change some of the other fees as well, besides the senior license?
It does.
Freshwater fishing licenses. The senior license actually is half fresh, half salt. But the other ones are freshwater fishing licenses, yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? Delegate Jacobs.
Let me verify the additional fee for seniors. It was $5 for the senior license and no charge for the trout stamp. And the proposed legislation will take it to $12 for the senior license and $32 for the stamp.
Resident stamp
Is
is
32.
going from 5 to 20, non-resident from 10 to 30. That's at the very end of the bill.
Resident stamp is 20.
Yes, non-resident is 30.
And previously, the senior was not required to pay for the trout stamp, but now that fee will be $32 for license and stamp, where it was $5.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like we're beating up on the senior citizens here and taxing their social security and all that with these fees and all.
I can't hear you, sir. You're very low. I'm not sure what's happening.
He's on
I'll
mute.
take it off mute. I was using the space bar.
Okay.
It looks like we're taxing social security and the senior citizens and the retirement funds in this. I think it's just atrocious. To be honest.
Okay, I would disagree, but I certainly hear your sentiments. I hear your sentiments. Is there anything else, Delegate Otto? Delegate Baker.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I do agree with Delegate Otto. And I know in my area in West, we live so close to Pennsylvania, so close to West Virginia, and I can assure you're going to drive Marylanders away from the waters in Maryland, and they're going to go to either West Virginia or Pennsylvania. And I just find that the amount that they're raising the fees to is really, really a tremendous jump. So for that reason, I won't be supporting this bill.
Thank you. And so per the fiscal note, they talked about, again, one, these fees haven't been raised in a very long time. One, two, the fees increased by the bill have not certainly increased in many years, and the additional revenue generated by the fees will support existing non-tidal fishery management efforts and provide funding for additional non-tidal fishery projects and infrastructure needs. You know, the DNR, they said the fishing and the boating services unit depends heavily on special funds derived from fees to operate as non-tidal fishery management. And so what I'm hearing is that the fee hasn't been increased in a while. This is to, you know, increase due to inflation, but also so that it can do the work that it currently may not be able to do efficiently because of the lack of funding. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think you just made some of the points that I was going to make. And in DNR's testimony, it says the fees have not been increased. The resident trout stamps were not increased since 1992 was the last time they were increased. And it also says that the fees are in line with neighboring states. It doesn't really get into detail on that. But also it says the division's aging trout hatchery infrastructure, Bear Creek Hatchery 1928, Albert Power Hatchery 1949, is currently not capable of meeting production goals that satisfy constituent demand. So it sounds like these fees are really needed in order to be able to maintain the infrastructure so that people can continue to trout fish.
Agreed. Thank you, Delegate Ruth, for that. Delegate Baker.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and with kind of in line there with the last comment made. So therefore, in my opinion, the fees should have been across the board, maybe $2 for every age group, because I do think that the younger you are, the more fishing you do, and the better you can get around the streams to fish for the trout. When you get up in age, such as I am, you can't navigate the streams as well, and sometimes you can't get to where they actually put the trout in. So I think that the fees should have been across the board, not targeting one specific age group. Thank you.
Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, these fees, is this matching funds to receive money from the federal government? What kind of money are we talking about here, and how much is it going to raise?
I am not 100% sure about that.
I
Krista.
know some of these programs, if we don't have the fee structure in place,
That is true.
we don't get the matching funds. But my question is what are we doing here? Are we?
For the record, I don't see anything in the fiscal note about
No.
federal funds
No.
coming in on these licenses. I could double check that though.
So what's the department doing with this money?
Well, I mean, as you know, Delegate, after a while, fees go up. And if you're not keeping up with a fee program that matches the fees that surround like the industry or the rising costs in general for goods and services, you falter. And so you're behind. And the fact that the fees are in line with the fees, to your point about people leaving the state, well, if they leave the state to go do this, they'll apparently be paying the same, if not more. So they're not going to get a better deal by leaving. Essentially, we're in line with other states that have the same kind of fee range and amounts. So
do we have a trout population? I take it most of this is going to the trout. You
Fisheries
refer to
Management
the
and
nursery
Protection Fund under Natural Resources
Yeah.
Article 4202.
So what's our studies? DNR tells us how they track the populations and all and have such technology. Is the population increasing? What's the catch?
I think this goes back again. You have to be able to do the job that you're already essentially mandated or legislated to do. You can't do that if you don't have money. And I would liken it to saying you're getting the same salary for 20 years without a COLA. Prices go up. So you got to get another job or a new job, right? To be able to keep up with the prices and the increases around you. And so I liken it to that. It's that they've been doing this work and doing more of it, more than likely, on the same quote unquote fees and salaries that are not allowing them to properly to be efficient in the requirements that they do have to either manage and or enforce.
I'd like to know the numbers of the population or the number of licenses that are being issued and some ability with the catch of what have they accomplished with their nurseries and planting these trout and all that. I think that's pertinent information. We need some kind of performance value here. Before we do these fee increases.
Understood. Thank you, Delegate Otto. Delegate Ruth, and then Delegate, can we go to Delegate Stein and then we go to Delegate Foley and Delegate Ruth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to reiterate what you said, that, DNR has said, and it's in the fiscal note, that the revenue generated by the bill will go to important non-tidal fishery management operations. Existing non-tidal fishery management efforts, additional fishery projects, infrastructure needs. And it says that DNR's fishing and boating services unit depends heavily on special funds derived from fee revenues to operate its non-tidal fisheries management. So it seems like, these are all, it's going directly to support fisheries management. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. And it also states that DNR states essentially they've calculated so that it's not a gouge. They're making enough money to meet their current funding requirements to be able to efficiently manage and enforce. Delegate Foley and then Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to quote from their DNR's letter of information as part of testimony that says what Delegate Ruth pointed out, that the division's aging trout hatchery infrastructure is currently not capable of meeting production goals that satisfy constituent demand. Without additional revenue, not only are investments to improve production impossible, but production in existing facilities would have to be significantly reduced or eliminated, effectively terminating very popular fishing programs such as the put and take trout stocking program, fingerling production that supports extremely popular trout resources, restoration of brook trout, and the youth rodeo program. And then it goes on to say later that without an increase in special fund revenue, the Freshwater Fisheries and Hatcheries Division will no longer be able to maintain services and programs meeting the desires and expectations of the constituents we serve. So I think it's clear that they need this money to not only deter, not only to support these programs, but also to maybe be somewhat of a deterrent to deplete these fish supplies. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Foley. And I want to Delegate Jacobs and Baker and Otto, if they go to page 5 of the fiscal note to the bottom. The estimate is based on the following assumptions. When they talk about essentially the same number of licenses and stamp holders in fiscal 25 and futures years is similar to the average of the number of licenses and stamp holders in fiscal 2020 through 24, which is the following exceptions. So they make some exceptions, but it also gives a number and some percentages about potential numbers of licenses as well as the potential revenue. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Delegate Baker's point, I did just want to clarify this is not only targeting seniors, that it does raise fees across the board. So for example, resident license goes from $20.50 to $32. Short-term license, 7 days, $7.50 to $16. Angler's license, $30.50 goes up to $55, and so on. So I'm not going to read all of these, but there's a number of them that go up. It's not just the seniors. It just happens that I think the seniors are the first one in the bill. And look, nobody wants to raise fees, particularly on seniors, but we all know how badly inflation has hurt everything, and, including DNR's costs as well. And the fact that these fees have not been raised since 1992, that was 23 years ago. Things have changed a lot in 23 years.
And I also want to point out that I was
30.
I'm sorry, Delegate Ruth.
33? Did I calculate wrong? Sorry.
33, that's okay. We want to be young. I just also want to point out that I was a part of the sportsmen's caucus, and I think there is a support in general for this particular bill. But go ahead, Delegate Baker.
Yes, Thank you for the correction, Delegate Ruth, but I was mainly referring to the trout stamp.
There any other,
Did you hear me? Did I?
yes, the trout stamp you were,
Thank you.
oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Foley again, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So if you, Delegate Baker, if you read in the fiscal note, I think it's on page, I don't know what page it is, but I'm looking at it online. It talks about repealing the trout stamp exemption for seniors. And part of it is it's intended to have 1/3 of senior sport fishing licenses contribute to the costs, without the remaining licenses having to pay for trout management through an overall higher senior sport fishing license fee. So this is like raising it on 1/3 of them so that they all don't get an increase. And it also makes the point, and you can agree with it or not, that by requiring them to purchase the stamp, they will now get communication about trout management and hatchery changes, which they don't get if they don't get the stamp.
And I also want to point out that there was no opposition to this bill, with the exception of a random person who I don't remember if they did oral testimony or not. So any other discussion? Is there a desire to move the bill?
I'll move the bill, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the bill? No. All in favor of moving favorably to the committee HB 40 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
Okay, that's Otto, this Baker and Jacobs. Thank you so much. The bill moves forward to the full committee. And 257, we are going to chat about. I understand there are some amendments, and I need to reach out to the sponsor to potentially have some potentially more amendments. This is the I think this is Patrick as well, the food, forest, and foraging program established. Yes, this was very interesting during committee. I understand that there is an amendment. The chair and I received an email about this project that I know some people, I think most people supported who testified, but there was a question about enforcement and reporting. And so I'm sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Actually, it's Kristen. It
yeah.
says meeting this
Kristen,
week.
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's our
Sorry.
the initial agenda has Patrick. We're switching it.
I'm sorry.
To me, no problem. So I haven't seen that email. You know, the sponsor submitted a small amendment. Basically, the bill requires that the department adopt regulations to implement this program, and her amendment would add language that the regulations are to prohibit the planting of non-native plant species in a food forest.
Okay, so let's have an open discussion about the bill in general. Are there any discussions? Are there any questions? And there any concerns about food foraging? I see Jacobs laughing. Otto shaking his head. I mean, this is why we have subcommittee. We can discuss it. Let's talk about the shaking in the heads and yes, Delegate Baker. You're on mute, dear.
Thank you. I usually don't talk this much, but I'll get it started. So I guess I was reading here and it talked about special funds increasing. I think that's what I read. But I don't see anything on fees. So unless I don't have that in my fiscal note or I can't find it.
Yeah, I think the fiscal note just estimates that they would increase, but it's they couldn't determine it there
They
there
can't
is
increase
an
because
author.
we don't have a fee for,
So the department would establish the fee, but
In
the fee
regulations.
amount was not in the bill. So it just authorizes or requires the department to establish the fee.
to me, it would be important to know what the fee's gonna be. I'll probably have another comment later, but I think it would be important to know what the fee structure is going to be. Oh, I lost you. Dang.
No, you're here. We still hear you.
Well, I can't see you and I want to see you.
Oh, you may,
We see you.
we see you. You may have pushed the button to mute yourself, but I see you. Oh,
Yeah, lower your
My
hand.
screen says Zoom.
oh, you know what it is? You may have pushed the button. It happens all the time. It's like you end up somehow hiding yourself from
I'm
yourself.
gonna cut off and come back on.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm back.
Oh, that look.
So
Oh, we
I'll-
love technology.
Not me. It's not for me.
That's okay. That's okay. But it's so necessary. Were there any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'd
Yeah.
ask, what's the definition of foraging? I mean,
So it means harvesting plant materials, including seeds, nuts, mushrooms, roots, tubers, and berries from non-commercial personal consumption. It does not include harvesting threatened or endangered plant species designated under a 10-2A04 of this article, which
well,
I mean, I see you smiling. This is why we have subcommittee. You can put your thoughts out.
and we're gonna require them to plant these forage areas, these
On state land.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this
at
bill.
$12,000 an acre. Is that what the estimate was to make this happen?
Close to 10,000, I think.
10,000,
All right,
acre.
well,
but it's also
1,000 here, 1,000 there,
but it would be the department's money per se, and then once they regulations create the permitting process, then the fees from the permit, as I think I recall, would lend to that cost.
So to forage, I'd have to get a permit?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So the bill has left it up to the department to essentially adopt the regulations and for the state-owned areas for foraging, establishing the permit process and fees, and establishing a fee waiver process for individuals who demonstrate financial need. And we
Right,
go
and
to this
I-
food. Go
You
ahead.
may have
Sue.
just said this, but yeah, this is limited to the areas that DNR manages, that
Right.
they're that they designate as a food forest.
Right.
So that the permit would be tied to the DNR
Already
designated.
established spaces.
Well, they would be the ones if they were establishing the food forest on
Right.
state land.
So where are they now? They're already established, you say, these?
In testimony, we heard about a couple, I think, established in local jurisdictions, but these are not, I don't think on state
We
lands.
can't forage there now until we get a permit?
This permit wouldn't change those local forests. This would just apply to the areas that DNR is setting up as a food forest.
Yes. So I believe they said there was a place in Montgomery County already, and this bill, for instance, wouldn't affect that, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what was the impetus for this? Is there like a lot of demand for this? Is this going to be really popular?
I can't answer that question other than that the Department of Natural Resources supports this idea because it'll be on their land that they will designate. So it's a good question, and it's something we can certainly ask the sponsor about it. I'm sure it is covered in her testimony, her online testimony. We can look through it. We are still going through this because, as I mentioned, and Kristen, I will send it to you, but the chair received an email from someone within his district talking about this, but talking about like it's, you know, great and wonderful, but we think we need something that speaks to how we enforce and essentially how we report out on. And I know there's a lot of us on here that like accountability. How do you to report out what's happening? What are we doing? How are we doing it? How many places were planted? You know, what was planted, so on and so forth. So there's a request to do that. In the meantime, there is an amendment that we can discuss and potentially adopt, and then essentially hold this bill until next time I'm talking to both the sponsor and DNR about reporting and enforcement.
Madam Chair, I move amendment number 1 that prohibits the planting of non-native invasive species in food forests on state land.
You would, wouldn't you?
Second,
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of the amendment to HB 257 signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any noes? Nays? Poor Otto and Jacobs. Otto said no. So we have adopted this amendment. We will hold out, but if there are any other questions or concerns about this bill, we would love to know them now so that we can get back to the sponsor and have more discussions about it. And I'll look through her testimony to your point to find out essentially what I'm hearing is what problem is this solving and what public good does this have? Delegate Baker and Delegate Jacobs.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, this fee structure, it's only going to be for the planted areas, or does this involve all Department of Natural Resources owned
No.
property throughout
Nope.
the state?
Nope. There are only certain places that will be that is either already in place or that will be determined by DNR. So we're not talking about every park, every public land. It's very strategic, very specific.
Hunting, I was mainly referring to hunting land in Washington County owned by the Department of by the state of Maryland.
I would argue, hopefully, that it would not be on hunted land unless hunted land is a big, thick forest as well. So I don't know.
Okay, thank you. And with that, am I still on?
Yes, sir.
So I guess what I was looking at, thinking of, if that would affect property out my way, I didn't know if it would be appropriate for an amendment to those that buy hunting or fishing license, that forage fee be included with those licenses. Just a thought.
I'm sorry, say that again.
If it would involve hunting land out in Western Maryland, that possibly an amendment to the point that if you purchased a Maryland hunting or fishing license, that also included in those license would be the forage fee. So you would be exempt from
You
having to
get for a
purchase.
2-for-1 is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Like if
that was
you had,
just a
okay.
thought.
Okay. Delegate Jacobs and Delegate Foley.
So as I'm looking at the fiscal note, besides the $10,000 per acre, and it looks like they need to hire a $70,000
Yep.
technician. Looks like $70,836 additional natural resources technician. I guess that they're going to oversee the planning of the plot, I would assume. So then there's going to have to be someone that's going to have to monitor the site to make sure people going on there have a permit or they don't.
Right,
And
so that goes back to what I mentioned about the constituents stating where's the report and how do you enforce this? So you're right on track,
That's what
Dylan.
I'm saying. It's how do you, it can be enforced, but there's
Sure.
gonna be cost involved, is what I'm saying. We're already short on police officers as it is.
Mhm.
And I think it's, this whole process of what we're looking at is kind of on ridiculous side on given this financial climate we're in right now.
Fair
That's all.
enough.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, I would like to explore Delegate Baker's idea about having a 2-for-1. That might be hunters and gatherers. That sounds good to me. The second thing, but my real question is, with respect to Delegate Baker's questions about hunting, did bring up a concern I hadn't really thought about, and maybe the bill addresses this, and I'm not looking at it right at this moment. Are we going to be having people foraging where people are hunting or in the vicinity of where people are hunting?
I'm going to make the assumption no, but we need to check on that. And I
Yeah,
was
we
hoping-
definitely should, because I think that, that creates a safety issue, obviously. And that, we don't want, hunters shooting people who are foraging.
Understood. I will follow up with now, I guess, Emily Wilson regarding this and DNR as well as the sponsor of the bill.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other thoughts, questions, chuckles? Delegate Baker.
This will be my last comment.
You can have as many comments as you want,
No,
Delegate.
this will be my last.
Wendy Baker.
Back to the safety issue.
Yes.
And I wasn't even thinking about that, but Delegate Foley brought up an excellent point. Turkey hunting in the spring, mushroom hunting, they go hand in hand.
Oh,
So many turkey hunters will hunt up to 11 or 12 o'clock, and then they'll hunt mushrooms for several hours in the woods. The same with trout fishermen. They will trout fish for a while. They'll take a break. They're next to public land or private land. They'll go look for a few mushrooms. So the safety point that she brought up is really, really
well, that's important
important.
because they
So-
talk a lot about, mushroom foraging. And so like that's a big product among it. So great thoughts, great thoughts. Look at that. Look at that. Look at you being useful. Look at that.
Occasionally.
Any other thoughts? Any other suggestions?
I got something.
Yes, Delegate.
No, it's a known fact that the deer and the turkey like to go where the nuts are thicker,
Mm,
like eating nuts. So where these nuts are really, in abundance, that's where you're going to find the game too.
well, I mean, I guess the question is it, it's a people foraging. We see that, the deer and animals won't have their own permit, but they would be certainly,
Well, they'll be in there eating that $10,000 plot up, is what I'm saying.
then there's that. Then there's that. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Delegate Baker, I thought you said the last one was your
I
last.
need to stop
lied
after
to me.
this. There will be very few people out foraging after they pay the fee when they go to that food plot and that mother black bear and her cubs are in there foraging. That's
Okay.
my last comment.
Well taken. Thank you so much. So I will make a note that we move the amendment, but that we are going to wait on. We need some more information. We need potential amendments and some clarifications, and we can bring this back up next week and see how we feel about it and then move from there. Anything else for the good of the order? We will be meeting, just so you know, we'll be meeting weekly now. Natural resources bills appear on Wednesdays, and so we will take those Wednesday bills and just add them to the list. And we do what we do. We will go down, we will vet, we will fight, we will chuckle, we will laugh, and we either be passing bills, holding bills, amending bills. You know the drill. Any food for thought? Delegate Ruth. Okay. If there's nothing else, first of all, always Want to thank Patrick and Kristen for being on the call, helping us out. Motion to adjourn.
Relax, calm down now. Don't stress.
And there you have it. We are adjourned. See you guys.